Good morning, Four Persons Blog Talk Radio Show fans. This is the Catholic Ken Apologetics Show with me, your host, Ken Litchfield. We have a great show planned for you today. Today, I will be discussing contraception, abortion, IVF, same sex unions, and transgenderism. I got a whole lot of notes here, and hopefully, we can get through them all today. If not, we'll have to bump some to next week. If you have any questions on this topic, feel free to call in at 515-602-9655. If you'd like a copy of today's show notes, you can send me an email at catholicken@thefourpersons.com. That's Catholic with a K at the number 4persons.com. I'm also available to come speak at your parish on this or many other topics. You can contact me at kenlitchfield61@gmail.com or look me up on Facebook. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe to this channel. Please share this video with others to help them learn more about the Catholic faith. A comment also helps YouTube to promote this to other people. So let's get started. Contraception is another name for birth control and is a very old practice. In the Old Testament, we have a form of contraception mentioned in Genesis chapter 38, verses 6 through 10, as an argument against contraception. So here's what it says in verse 6, starting with verse 6. Judah got a wife named Tamar for his firstborn, But Judah's firstborn, greatly offended the Lord, so the Lord took his life. Then Judah said to Onan, "Unite with your brother's widow in fulfillment of your duty as brother-in-law, and thus preserve your brother's line." Onan, however, knew that the descendants would not be counted as his, so whenever he had relations with his brother's widow, he wasted his seed on the ground to avoid contributing offspring for his brother. What he did greatly offended the Lord, and the Lord took his life too. Onan was supposed to marry his deceased brother's childless widow. This practice was known as the Levirate law, from the Latin word lever, meaning a husband's brother, and was required by the law of Moses, as shown in Deuteronomy chapter 25, verses 5 through 10. And was intended to ensure an unmarried brother would raise up seed for the deceased brother, that his name not be blotted out of Israel. The argument against contraception, specifically in this case, what is known as coitus interruptus, based on this passage, used to be considered straightforward. Onan performed the act which bears his name because the child which might have resulted would have been counted as his brother's rather than his own, something Onan found intolerable. If a man didn't fulfill his obligation to his deceased brother's wife, she was to take the matter to the elders, who would counsel him and try to persuade him to change his mind. If he persisted, the widow was to go up to him and strip his sandal from his foot and spit in his face, saying publicly, "This is how one should be treated who will not build up his brother's family." And again, this refers to Deuteronomy chapter 25, specifically verse 9. In other ancient cultures, men would have wives for legitimate children and concubines for sexual entertainment. If a man wanted to have more children, he would have sex with his wife. He could regulate how many children he had by choosing his sexual partner. Some ancient pharmacists created potions that were supposed to stop pregnancy. Sometimes they killed the women who took them because they were made so sick. The ancient sheep herders developed the condom by using part of the intestines of the sheep they butchered to help prevent the transmission of sexual diseases with the prostitutes that they visited when they were in town. And this is how the use of a condom was developed to as a form of contraception. In the Roman culture at the time of Jesus, Roman men would have a wife for legitimate children and mistresses for entertainment. When a Roman man's wife would have a child, the child would be placed on the floor in the birthing room for the husband's review. If he picked up the child, it would be accepted and brought into the family. However, if he rejected the child, it would be abandoned. The term used at this time for the abandonment of children was exposure, which meant that the child was left outside to die. These children were sometimes eaten by wild dogs, or picked up by slave traders, or rescued by Christians. This was one of the ways that Christianity grew so quickly through the saving of these rejected babies. Around 1916, Margaret Sanger helped develop a form of oral contraception to prevent women from getting pregnant because their husbands wanted to have sex with them regularly. Margaret's mother died in childbirth, and this greatly affected her. And this is why she wanted to help women to avoid getting pregnant, because she knew that it was a hazardous thing to do back then. She founded the organization that now is known as Planned Parenthood. Her goal was to reduce the number of unsuitable humans. She referred to them as human weeds. She targeted poor, uneducated, and non white people for contraception. The contraception pill she developed tricks a woman's body into thinking that she might be pregnant by introducing higher levels of certain female hormones. This hormone imbalance is intended to keep the egg from implanting in the uterus, even if it is fertilized. In the 1930s, the Church of England allowed its married members to use contraception. Since the world was in an economic depression, they thought it made sense to reduce the number of children parents had with little money would the number of children parents with little money would have to take care of. This opened the door for the wider use of contraception. The reason we have males and females is for the reproduction of the species. You find this in any invertebrate, from the most basic uh, small animals to us humans and whales. Every animal that has a vertebrae has male and female versions of that animal. And the male and the female part, or the males and the females, have the parts necessary for the reproduction of their species. That's how God designed it, and that's where new creatures of that species come from. Contraception is intended to stop reproduction. Humans have redefined the purpose of sex to the point where it is just a form of entertainment through the use of contraception that separates the sexual act from the reproductive act. When we lose the real purpose of sex, then we quickly fall into other sexual deviations like pornography, homosexual activity, and transgenderism. And the next step is pedophilia, which the leftists are now working on. All this leads to the destruction of the family. If you sign up to be a Catholic, then you sign up to obey what the church teaches. And the Catholic Church teaches that artificial contraception is not good for us for all the above reasons. Pope John Paul or Pope John VI wrote about this in the 1960s, and At that time, a lot of people thought that he was very wrong on what he was saying would happen because contraception was becoming more and more common. And all his predictions have come true. The Catholic Church allows the Catholic Church does allow married couples to abstain from sex during the 5 day of a month that a woman is fertile. Actually, a woman is only fertile for 12 hours, but the mucus cap on the cervix is capable of keeping sperm cells alive for about 5 days. Paul writes about abstaining from sex in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. Paul writes, "Now concerning the matters about which you wrote, it is well for a man not to touch a woman. But because of the temptation to immorality, each man should have his own wife, and each woman her own husband. The husband should give to his wife her conjugal rights, and likewise the wife to her husband. For the wife does not rule over her own body, but the husband does. Likewise, the husband does not rule over his own body, but the wife does. Do not refuse one another, except perhaps by agreement for a season, that you may devote yourselves to prayer, but then come together again, lest Satan tempt you through the lack of self control. I say this by way of concession, not of command. I wish that all were as I myself am, but each has his own special gift from God, one of one kind and one of another." So Paul is telling us here that he wishes all people were like him, that is, single and celibate. But because of our human failings, he understands that uh, men and women have a desire for one another, and it's better for a man and woman, a husband and wife, to have sex together than to lust after someone outside of their marriage and have sex with them. Abortion was developed as the backup plan for when contraception fails. When we start confusing feelings with science and logic, many things become unclear. Life is easy to define, and it is the subject, and you can know this by observing the subject using and seeing if it is using chemicals as food. Are its cells growing and dividing? For a fertilized human egg, the answer is yes. If NASA found a one-celled creature on another planet that could consume chemicals in its environment as food and excrete chemicals as waste, was capable of cell growth and division, and living in its proper environment, they would claim to have found life on another planet. A sperm cell and an egg cell both contain half the chromosomes of a normal human cell. A fertilized egg has a full set of human chromosomes. That fertilized egg only contains human DNA. So you can't say it is anything but human. It is not another species. A fertilized egg is capable of growing using chemicals as food and excreting chemicals as waste. It can grow and divide as well as live in its proper environment. By week 5, it has a heartbeat and enough brain function to maintain that heartbeat, which are the two criteria for life at any other time. At the end of 8 weeks, it looks like a tiny human being. So Planned Parenthood has for many years told women that the baby growing inside them is just a clump of cells. But by the time a woman knows that she's pregnant, that clump of cells is developed enough to have a heartbeat and brain function to maintain that heartbeat. And by the end of the second month, that baby looks like a tiny human being. It may only be an inch long, but it looks like a tiny human being. It's not a clump of cells. Now, a little more information on this idea of chromosomes in DNA to define the terms here. Each cell of our human body has a nucleus, and inside the nucleus are the chromosomes. These are chains of amino acids. And a group of amino acids are considered a gene, which codes for a certain part of our human body, or whatever the body of whatever species we're talking about at that time. All invertebrates, that is, all animals that have a vertebrae, have cells with chromosomes, and those chromosomes have sections that are referred to as genes, and those genes are made up of DNA, which DNA is short for deoxyribonucleic acid. And each cell of your body contains all the chromosomes necessary to reproduce your body. It is the blueprint for our body. And it is designed by God so that even if there's only one cell of you left, God has the blueprint to reproduce you. And that's how we can get our immortal heavenly body at the resurrection. All it takes is one cell from our original body. And during reproduction, the half of the chromosomes from produced by either the ovaries or the testes, each sperm cell or egg cell gets only half of the chromosomes. So when the sperm cell and egg cell unite, there is a full set of chromosomes again. It used to be considered that the man planted his seed inside the woman and it grew like a seed growing in the ground inside the woman. But a Catholic monk in the Gregor Mendel found in the 1800s that the children of the plants that he was experimenting with got characteristics from both parents, not just from the male pollen that he was transferring to the female parts of the plant. So the understanding that we have that our genetic characteristics come from the mother and the father was discovered by a Catholic. Now, some people try to support abortion by the use of confusing terms that and the reality that a fertilized egg is a human being. They use terms like fetus, clump of cells, or a parasite. They don't want to admit that the child inside is a human being. The word fetus is a biological term for a human at an early stage of life. The fertilized egg contains only human DNA and is called a zygote. That zygote multiplies into a clump of human cells, which start developing into different kinds of cells in 4 days. So, 4 days after conception, the cells are already changing into different kinds of tissue. These differentiated human cells are usually implanted by the end of the first week. So, a The female egg is fertilized by the male sperm somewhere at the end of the fallopian tubes and then later implants itself in the uterus. Now, some people like to say that the baby inside the mother is a parasite. It is a clever way of making him or her sound less human. But a parasite harms its host and forces its way in from outside. A baby, by contrast, is created inside and meant to be kept within the mother. At this stage in life, the baby is intended to receive its nutrition through its mother. A real parasite spends its entire life feeding off its host. A baby will eventually be able to live outside its mother. A parasite harms its host, but a baby growing inside its mother provides stem cells that can heal the mother. There are times when a fertilized egg implants itself in the fallopian tube between the ovary and the uterus. This is called an ectopic pregnancy. Neither the baby or the mother can survive this pregnancy. In cases like this, it is permissible to remove the section of the fallopian tube to save the life of the mother. It has the double effect of killing the child developing there as well. The original intention is not to kill the child, but the end result is the killing of the child. The child would not be able to survive in the fallopian tube and would have died in the mother before being large enough to survive outside the mother. There are other times that a mother may have a disease in her reproductive system that requires treatment that would kill the unborn child. In cases like this, some mothers heroically put off treatment until the child is large enough to survive outside the womb. Some choose to receive treatment that ends in the death of their child as well. In this instance, the treatment is intended to save the mother, not kill the child. The death of the child is the result of treatment, but not the intention. This is allowed under the principle of double effect, which allows a good action even if it has unintended consequences for another human being. It is important to weigh the facts as the risk of the mother and the risk of the baby. Yes. Each situation is different and needs to be assessed on its own. The overriding goal is to save the life of both the mother and the child. Some people claim that abortions need to be kept legal for special cases like incest, rape, or the life of the mother is in danger. The most recent statistics that we have on this are from a 2015 Guttmacher Institute study, which shows that 0.0001% of the pregnancies result from incestuous relationships. 0.001% the woman has been raped. 0.003% the woman's life was endangered by the pregnancy. And 0.01% there was a serious fetal abnormality. 0.01% the woman's physical health was threatened by the pregnancy. 0.02% the woman's psychological health was threatened by the pregnancy. 20.02% of the women aborted their baby for social and economic reasons. Like these women didn't think that they could afford or were physically or in a situation where they could take care of that baby. But the overwhelming 75.40% had no reason. And these are women that were just using abortion as a form of contraception because the contraception that they were using either failed or they failed to use it properly. If we allow women to have an abortion if a pregnancy is the result of incest or rape, we open the door to a woman using that claim to have an abortion at any time. Only if the case is researched and prosecuted can the fact of rape or incest be determined. Generally, this will take long enough for a woman to complete her pregnancy. This would allow the child to be born anyway and still avoid abortion. To follow the violence of rape or incest with the violence of dismembering a baby compounds the problem. It does not solve it. Some people say that late-term abortion needs to be kept legal for the health of the mother. If a woman develops a serious medical condition late in her pregnancy, then the safest option for her and her baby is to deliver through a cesarean section. All abortion procedures normally done late in pregnancy are too slow to help a woman with a serious medical condition. Some people say that since a baby can't survive outside the womb, it is not a valid human being. Many regular people can't survive by themselves all the time and need help from others, and no one would suggest simply killing them. At 21 days, the baby's heartbeat begins. This is before a woman even knows she is pregnant. A woman can survive outside, a baby can survive outside the womb at as little as 22 weeks, yet abortions are commonly done up to 24 weeks and up into and through birth for babies with disabilities. Now, there's basically three different, well, in our modern times, four different ways that abortions are performed. In the first trimester, the first 3 months of a pregnancy, an abortion is usually performed by vacuuming the pieces of the baby and the uteral, the lining of the uterus out with a tube. And then all those parts are sent to a lab to make sure that they got all the parts of the baby out. The During the second trimester, months 4 through 6, the baby is cut into pieces and removed bit by bit from the mother. After 6 months, the baby is commonly partially delivered and then has its spinal cord cut. Now that we have abortion inducing pills, a woman can take those at any time and kill her baby. The first pill kills the baby, and the second pill induces labor to deliver the baby. But all of these result in the killing of a human being. And that's why abortion is the most heinous evil that we have to fight against today. Abortion is a sin that can be forgiven before death if you are truly sorry. To assist in an abortion is also morally wrong, but can also be forgiven if you are truly sorry. Abortion is scientifically wrong, morally wrong, and logically wrong. And the Catholic Church has programs to help people recover from abortion and in assisting in abortion. Uh, they have weekend retreats at called Rachel's Vineyard, and during these retreats, mothers and parents are invited to give the child a name that they killed and ask that child to forgive them. And the Catholic Church offers sacrament of reconciliation to allow people to set aside their sin and recognize that God has forgiven them. When we remember that our goal is to get to heaven and that these aborted babies go straight to heaven because they had no chance at life, it can bring healing and peace to women that have had an abortion. If you'd like to get a greater insight into Planned Parenthood, watch the movie Unplanned. It gives you a first-hand account of what actually happens at Planned Parenthood. Catholics and Protestants both recognize the sinful nature of homosexual acts and that we are made by God as male and female. But because Protestants teach that contraception is okay or even good, they have no foundation as to why homosexual acts are bad. Protestants were against contraception up until about 1930 when the Anglican Church allowed it under certain circumstances. This was expanded over time because the sola scriptura folks couldn't find anything against it in the Bible. The core of the issue is exactly what the Catholic Church has always taught. Sex without the possibility of reproduction is fornication, and therefore sinful. This disallows contraception, anal sex, mutual masturbation, and self-masturbation. Pope Pius VI predicted the path society would take when procreation was taken away from the Sex Act, and history has shown him to be right. Only when we recognize that the true purpose of sex is reproduction will we have a foundation to argue against the sexual and now marriage revolution. Gender for humans is easy to define even when the physical expression of is ambiguous. The scientific proof is in the DNA. The biological purpose of sex is reproduction. For humans, there's a bonding aspect along with the reproductive aspect. When you understand the purpose of sex, it is easy to know what marriage is. The purpose of marriage is for a man and a woman to agree to live with each other and raise the children that come from their sexual activity. Our society became confused about all this when we accepted contraception, which turns sex into a form of entertainment, not reproduction. But sex is not just about entertainment. It is about our sharing in God's plan for creation. To intentionally thwart God's plan for reproduction is to reduce procreation to fornication, which is a sin that can send you to hell. At the time of the Roman Empire, abortion was done by beating the mother's abdomen or by the insertion of toxic substances that could create a toxic environment for the baby. These toxic substances could also harm or kill the mother. If an unwanted child was born, it would be abandoned on trading paths or under bridges. These abandoned babies were often eaten by animals or picked up by traders and who sold them as slaves. The earliest catechism in Christianity is called the Didache and is dated around 70 AD. The Didache forbids abortion and contraception. The early Christians rescued many of the abandoned babies and raised them as their own, and this helped Christianity grow even faster. In 391 AD, a famous Christian named St. John Chrysostom wrote about abortion. Why do you sow where the field is eager to destroy the fruit? Where there are medicines of sterility, that is, oral contraceptives. where there is murder before birth, like abortion. You do not even let a harlot remain only a harlot, but you make her a murderess as well. Indeed, it is something worse than murder, and I do not know what to call it, for she does not kill what is formed, but perverts its formation. What then? Do you condemn the gift of God and fight with his natural laws? Yet such turpitude, the matter still seems indifferent to many men, even to many men having wives. In this indifference of the married men, there is greater evil filth. For then poisons are prepared, not against the womb of the prostitute, but against your injured wife. Against her are the innumerable tricks. And that's from his writing of Homilies on Romans 24. So this is how a brief timeline on how our culture became so confused about sex and contraception. In 1916, Planned Parenthood is founded to reduce the undesirable population. In 1929, the Anglican Church allows contraception for married couples. In 1953, pornography becomes mainstream when Playboy is published. In 1963, prayer is taken out of the schools. In 1966, Griswold versus Connecticut allowed contraception to become legal. In 1973, abortion became legal through the decision of Roe versus Wade. In 2015, same-sex marriage was legalized. In 2018, the Boy Scouts starting accepted girls to become Boy Scouts. This sounds absurd and is because a boy is not a girl and a girl is not a boy. In 2018, the Me Too movement encouraged women to come forward about sex abuse cases. And it's because we have become so confused about sex that people are doing it at any time, anywhere, for any reason, as a form of entertainment. Jesus has gone from our public square, and we get what we deserve. On June 24th, 2022, in the Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned a 50-year precedent by overruling Roe versus Wade. In the year following that decision, the pace of new legislation on abortion has been swift. Indeed, by the 100th day after the Dobbs decision, nearly 22 million of reproductive age, almost 1 in 3 women, found themselves living in states where abortion was unavailable or severely restricted. According to the Guttmacher Institute, which tracks state-level abortion legislation, in 2022 alone, state legislators introduced 563 provisions to restrict access to abortion, and 50 of those restrictions were signed into law that same year. This decision has allowed each state to decide whether abortion would be allowed or not in that particular state. Before the Supreme Court decision in 2022, California and New York had previously passed laws that allowed abortion up until birth and even partial birth. Since the Dobbs decision, many states have had votes to determine whether abortion would be allowed in that state or not. Every state that has put it to a vote has ended up allowing abortion. This evil idea is so ingrained in our culture that people are not ready to give it up. In my state of Michigan, abortion was illegal after the Dobbs decision. Our Democrat Attorney General refused to enforce the laws that were on the books, which is her duty. Democrats don't care about the law when it contradicts their agenda. In the state of Michigan, we had a statewide vote, and the residents overwhelmingly voted to allow abortion at any time, anywhere, by anyone. They voted for open season hunting on the unborn. As a Catholic and a member of the Knights of Columbus, I worked with many others to try to convince people that abortion was the killing of an unborn human being. But people don't want to know the sickening truth about abortion. We have to do a better job educating people. Protect Life Michigan is educating people on college campuses and making great progress. My Knights of Columbus Council helps support our local crisis pregnancy center called Spiro. Spiro provides pregnancy testing and shows the parents their baby on an ultrasound, so they know there is a person in there, not a clump of cells like Planned Parenthood will tell them. Spiro offers parenting classes, adoption services, and baby supplies for the first 2 years of a child's life to help the family get off to a good start. Now, there's a lot of confusion in the Catholic Church about abortion. And the sad truth is that people that claim to be Catholic are about 50-50 on the issue of abortion. Our current president, Joe Biden, is a guy who claims to be a Catholic and claims to support abortion. And some people say that he's a good Catholic because he carries a rosary. However, the Catholic Church has always taught that abortion is evil and not allowed in the Catholic Church. So if you want to claim to be Catholic, you have to not support abortion. So Joe Biden is not an example of a good Catholic. The Catholic Church has a long history on its teaching against abortion. Some people refer to the various penances for abortion throughout the centuries to give an appearance that the Catholic Church did not always hold abortion as a grave matter. Some people also refer to Bishop Antonius of the 1500s as a Catholic who did not consider abortion to be a sin. The first document on Catholic Christian practice is the Didache from about 70 AD. This document says that you shall not kill a child by abortion or pharmacia, that is, herbal or chemical treatment. First, we must understand that the early stages of fetal development were largely unknown until the last 50 years. It was generally thought that the seed of the man was implanted in the woman and grew like a seed in the ground. There's a long-standing dispute on when the seed received a human rational soul. Many Catholic theologians thought that ensoulment did not happen until the seed was implanted in the uterus. Therefore, some theologians speculated that there was no human until ensoulment happened. This possibility allowed for abortion before ensoulment. In the late 1500s, St. Antonius did not know at this time in history when ensoulment happened. He gave his opinion that if the life of the mother was in danger before ensoulment happened, the human seed could be killed. St. Antonius did not teach that you could kill the human seed for any other reason. He also cautioned that since we don't know when ensoulment happened, it was best to avoid abortion altogether. In the 1800s, the Catholic monk Gregor Mendel discovered that the traits of offspring come from both parents. This was a first step toward the modern understanding that a new human is formed at conception, since it comes from the uniting the of something from the mother and the father, not just the father. We now know that a human being is formed when the female egg and the male sperm unite, producing a cell with a full set of human chromosomes coming equally from both parents. This human zygote contains only human DNA and starts growing and dividing before it implants in the uterus. This shows that it is a living human being and therefore has a soul. The Catholic Church has been consistent throughout history in its condemnation of abortion, even in cases of rape and incest. Human life is human life, no matter how it is created. Compounding the sins of rape and incest with the sin of murder through abortion does not solve the problem. If a mother cannot bear to raise a child conceived in this way, adoption is the caring option. The Catholic Church does allow for the removal of a fertilized egg that is stuck in the fallopian tube between the ovary and the uterus. This situation results in a pregnancy that neither the mother or the child can survive. This removal does kill the human zygote, but it is the result of the procedure to save the life of the mother, not the child. The Catholic Church also allows for the removal of a cancerous uterus that may contain an implanted human zygote or a fertilized human fetus in later stages of development. Again, the intention of the surgery is to save the life of the mother, not the not the killing of the child growing there. Many mothers heroically put off the operation until the child is developed enough to survive outside the womb. The Catholic Church has never allowed abortion to be used as a form of contraception. The Catholic Church has taught that to use abortion to prevent embarrassment of a child being born outside of wedlock is also intrinsically evil. To intentionally kill another human being is simply evil. Only under threat of imminent great harm or death is the killing of another human being allowed. A developing child is seldom a threat to the mother or other people. Pope St. John Paul II wrote about the value of human life in his encyclical Evangelium Vitae, which translates into English as On Human Life. John Connery, S.J.'s book, Abortion, The Development of the Roman Catholic Perspective, published by Loyola University Press in 1977, explains that Antonius relied on the distinction between the animated and unanimated fetus that was prevalent before the process of fetal development was understood. Antoninus condemned abortion of the animated fetus in all cases. For the unanimated fetus, Antonius allowed abortion to save the life of the mother. According to Father Connery, this was completely dependent on the distinction between an animated and unanimated fetus, and so it is fair to cite Antonius as supporting a pro-choice position. The Protestant Denis de Mauro wrote, "A love for life, Christianity's consistent protection of the unborn." De Mauro demonstrates that the pro-life core of the entire Judeo-Christian tradition, his history of the Catholic position, is consistently accurate. The book is a good refutation for pro-choice Protestants and people who claim to be pro-choice Catholics. Now, recently, President Trump has been taking a lot of criticism for his apparent change on his stance against abortion. But we must remember that Trump was the president that got the Supreme Court justices on the bench overturned Roe versus Wade, which returned the abortion decision to the states. Trump is also the only president to speak at the annual March for Life in Washington, D.C. President Trump is still pro-life, but he also recognizes that the majority of people in the U.S. still want abortion to some extent. And this is why he leaves it up to the states. The Democrats claim that Trump will impose a nationwide abortion ban if he is elected. But he has stated that he is leaving the decision up to the states. The Democrats will twist every idea and law to protect their evil idea of abortion. And they want to use the abortion issue to get both their voters to turn out and to turn independent voters against President Trump. The Democrats will leave no stone unturned when it comes to defending this evil idea of killing the unborn. This coming November, Florida has a 15-week abortion ban. But this November, there are two ballot initiatives that will change the abortion ban to either 6 weeks or the point of viability. The problem is that the time of viability continues to change. We already know that babies as young as 21 weeks can be saved outside the womb. So at this point, 21 weeks is the point of viability. However, as medical technology advances, we will be able to save babies even younger than that outside the womb. But as I previously have demonstrated, life begins at conception. That's when the child gets a full set of human DNA, is capable of consuming chemicals for food, and excreting chemicals as waste. So that's when a baby becomes alive. This is science and is not to be confused by people's feelings about abortion. So that's all we have time for today. I want to thank you very much for tuning in. Keep in mind that this November, we have two choices. We have the party of death that wants to kill as many babies as they can at the Democratic National Convention this month. They had a bus outside the convention hall where men could get vasectomies and women could get the abortion pill. The Democrats are trying to make their party go extinct through their practices, and we can only hope that they succeed. So come this November, you have the choice between a guy who's already shown that he supports life and a woman who has made a point and stands with her party in choosing death over life. I urge you to choose wisely. The Catholic Church allows us to vote for the most pro-life candidate when both candidates appear to support abortion. And Trump is the most pro-life of the two candidates that are going to be on the ballot this November. So thanks for tuning in today. If you found this show useful, please consider making a tax-deductible donation. to the Four Persons Incorporated using the donation tab on our homepage. If you'd like a copy of today's show notes or have a follow-up question, send me an email at catholicken@thefourpersons.com or look me up on Facebook. If you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, please like and share this video. Also, make sure you are subscribed on YouTube for more great content coming soon. If you'd like to have me come speak at your parish on this or many other topics, send me an email at kenlitchfield61@gmail.com or look me up on Facebook. May God bless and guide your efforts to bring the truth of the Catholic faith to the world. Thanks for tuning in. Bye now.